Mic check 1, 2. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. I have a quiz for you. I have a quiz for a lot of you out there that are watching on a regular. But tell me what you noticed different today that you haven't noticed in a few other days or weeks or months. We did a little something different tonight because we have a very special guest. Actually, we have a guest and a host. My host is pulling up in a second, but in the last week or so, we were discussing the outcome of the Tasha K and Cardi B bankruptcy case. Well, Tasha K's bankruptcy, and obviously Cardi B was the biggest creditor that was in Tasha K's bankruptcy. And, there was a lot of talk regarding the circumstances surrounding the outcome, and a lot of it was misinformation. The understanding of what actually occurred was kind of all over the place. However, I did my best to keep the facts as it was by reporting the court docs. But it's important, especially when you talk about bankruptcy in this case, because it involves a high-profile celebrity, Cardi B, and arguably Tasha K is listen, she's a celebrity now. She's I won't take that away from her. She's elevated herself in the media space at the expense of Cardi B, but she's there. And we're going to talk about how did she get to where she's at now, and we're going to talk about some of the consequences that resulted in her moving up this ladder of sorts in the media space. But I have a very special guest coming in a short minute. I have someone that is going to be on the show with me, and I again, this person should have been here already. But again, we'll talk about them. We'll talk about them when they get up here because they know the show starts on time, and we might have to just do without them. No, we're not going to do that. So let's talk about first and foremost. Just a couple of days ago, there was a conclusion in the case involving Latasha Kebe, Tasha K, and there were a lot of lawyers involved. Not just lawyers, trustees, forensic accountings, a judge. Just a lot of people involved, and there are people behind the scenes. And we're not going to talk about those people behind the scenes, but there were a lot of people involved in helping this case come to a conclusion of sorts. It's not really over, but it's at a point where there's a light at the end of the tunnel, if I can say that. I want to first talk about the story when it broke. We had some people saying, "Well, Cardi's taking a loss. She's losing in this." Well, not so fast. She's not losing at all. She's actually going to get every dime that was awarded to her in the bankruptcy case. Not the bankruptcy case, the defamation case that resulted in Tasha K filing a bankruptcy. But what I want to do now is bring in the man behind making sure this deal happens. And it almost didn't happen. And I can say from what I'm told, it got to a point where it was going to go south real quick. And if not for the diligence of all sides, this case would have probably ended a whole lot different. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bring in my guests. I'm bringing my guests right now. And ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, first of all, before I even bring him in, I just want to let you guys know this guy has a very impressive background. And we want, I'm going to make sure you guys have all his information at the conclusion of the live, but I want to pull up his bio. We were looking at it the other day, and I said, "Wow, this guy's done a whole lot," and it should be here. I want to bring him up real quick. Well, I'll bring him up, and we'll talk about his background in a minute. But we need to get him up here on stage. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let me bring on Mr. James Moon. James.
Hi there, Dennis. How you doing?
How are you? I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Nice to see you.
But first of all, I wanted to talk to you throughout this case, but I know that you were working and you had no time to talk to the media. You had no time to talk to anyone but the people that was involved in this case. But we are now at a point where you can talk. The other side was talking yesterday, I think 2 days ago, I think.
I got to tell you, Dennis, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk to you. And, you raised a really good point. I was very quiet during all of the case. I don't think anybody actually even knew who I was. I was Cardi's bankruptcy attorney, and I was perfectly happy with that. I will tell you, one of the things that was hard to watch is some of the commentators that would spend, for example, an hour reviewing a 2004 subpoena, going over the definitions for an hour. It was kind of surreal, and I'm kind of new to this. I don't get in the media or the public eye very much, but as somebody that's involved in the case and hearing just how badly some get it wrong, and I was so happy to hear it when you got it right, which is why I'm talking to you. I haven't talked to anybody else. Nobody else has gotten an interview, just you.
Wow.
I mean,
appreciate that.
I mean, a good example, Dennis, I'll give you a good example for your listeners. We had a motion to dismiss the case where we had talked about the onshore and offshore trust that had been created by Tasha and her husband, and they lied about repeatedly. And I'd mentioned that, for example, one of them was in the state of Georgia. And for some reason, somewhere, somebody decided it was the country of Georgia. And then I watched it be replicated over and over again by people that picked up the story, and it was completely wrong. And the worst part was the document from the state of Georgia that referenced it was attached to the document. No one read it. So I got to tell you, it was surreal. And these were apparent attorneys. So, all I could do was roll my eyes and think, well, at some point the truth is going to come out. But you were always a constant. And, I could never reach out to you. I was very quiet this entire case, but it was one of the things that made me feel good that at least somebody out there was at least trying. And you're the only one that even bothered to ask me. No one ever contacted me to get any kind of due diligence or checking. But yeah,
and that's interesting, that you bring that up, when, you weren't, your number wasn't hidden from the public. They could even got a no comment. They didn't even reach out to get a no comment.
No, it was surreal. So anyway, but I appreciate it. And I do thank you for the time.
Let me welcome my host. She's on CP time, and I don't know if you know CP time. You know a lot of codes because this is a former.
I do.
Military officer. You've been to Afghanistan. It was Afghanistan, right? You did a tour in Afghanistan as well.
Wow.
Well, I was enlisted, so I'll have to salute you then.
Okay. Well, attorney Moon. This is also attorney Anderson. She's in business law. So I thought it was important to have her up here today as well, because, I'm sure in the course of her doing her business, she interacts with people that might have to consider bankruptcy. But, I thought it was important to have her there. Thank you, Thelma, for joining the show. Now, you made a very good point when you mentioned that people didn't reach out to you. Obviously, a lot of people were talking about this bankruptcy and they were getting a lot of things wrong. Can you help us understand the type of bankruptcy that Tasha K was in, and explain the subchapter and the classifications and so forth for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And so this particular case is what we would refer to colloquially as a subchapter 5 bankruptcy. It's a subset of a chapter 11, which simply means reorganization. And a chapter 11 is available for both businesses and individuals. But one of the impediments that Congress had found with respect to this particular issue, especially with individuals, is chapter 11 is extremely expensive, even for individuals. And we're talking a minimum of 6 figures usually to get any company or any person through a bankruptcy. It's just extremely expensive. So, but that left an impediment to people that had small businesses, for example, to be able to file for bankruptcy and try to reorganize. And, the important thing about bankruptcy, it's a really important thing to remember, is that it's meant for the honest but unfortunate debtor to reorganize their debt. It's not meant for people to play the system. It's not meant for fraudsters or people that think that they're just going to stick it to their creditors and never pay them. It's for people that want to actually be responsible and pay back their debt, but they just don't have the money to do it. But so subchapter 5 made a streamlined process so that you could reorganize if you had a business, and that could be as a small business, like a company, or it could be as an individual where the majority of your debt is business debt. So it's a fantastic tool. It's been incredibly successful. And I will tell you, not to argue with other attorneys, but it is a mechanism where confirmed subchapter 5 plans have been done quite a bit down here in this district by other lawyers. And so it's just fantastic. The judges love it, the attorneys love it. But one of the great things about it and why it's such an effective tool is that it allows a process where creditors don't have a veto, right? And a regular chapter 11, if you don't carry the class that has the majority of the debt, such as we do, we have, Cardi had 98.6% of the unsecured debt in this case. If it was a regular chapter 11, we could have blocked any kind of confirmation, right? But in this particular case, it's you have a chance to do what we call a cram down. So you can either get a consensual plan where everybody agrees, or you do what's called a cram down. And if you get a cram down, then all you have to show, for example, is that it's fair and equitable and that the plan is feasible. And the only thing you really have to do is you have to take your net disposable income and pay it over the life of the plan. So whatever your disposable income is, you pay it. Creditors hate it. Debtors love it. Okay. And so in this particular case, it was a good maneuver to try to, push an issue where, listen, if you don't agree with this, we're just going to leave you with your net disposable income. The problem with this particular approach in this case was prior to the bankruptcy case, as both Tasha and her husband admitted to over and over again under oath, they had deliberately moved income and assets from Tasha and their company, Kebe Studios, to Yelene Entertainment, which is owned by her husband. And this did 2 things. Number one, as they admitted, they did it to avoid garnishment. And that is textbook fraudulent transfer, because what you're doing is you're moving the money to do what we call trying to hinder, delay, or defraud your creditors. That is precisely what they were doing. So as they were entering bankruptcy, they were trying to minimize any kind of income available to Tasha. So let's go back a moment. When I talked about what kind of a plan you could have with a subchapter 5, a net disposable income. If they've been moving all of the income, this large amount of money that she had been getting prior to bankruptcy, and minimizing it to this small little amount, then all we have available for a net disposable income plan is whatever that amount is they decided to leave us. But the problem is all the money was just simply diverted. So So the
And let's
point is,
we will get into
yeah.
we're going to
that's
get
what
into that. Your expertise is locating. I won't say locating, but your specialty is fraud in bankruptcy. You have expertise in fraud
It
investigation.
is. And I will tell you that my firm is especially good at this. My firm, Milan Budwick, we're just a wonderful team, and we do a lot of high end stuff. We fought with some of the biggest law firms in the country, with very high net individuals, and we partner with forensic accountants, such as the ones that we did here with Barry Mukamal at Kapila Mukamal, that are real professionals at being forensic accountants and basically following the money, and that's what we did here. And incidentally, that's why this case took as long as it did, because the debtor, Tasha, was not truthful about her assets. She wasn't truthful about the fact that she had trust. And all we did was follow the money. We started subpoenaing the banks. We subpoenaed the estate lawyer that she testified that she never got, but we found. We testified. I mean, it just goes on and on. And so, it's sort of like whack-a-mole. As soon as you see something pop up, you need to go investigate. We'd investigate and find something else, and so we'd go follow that money, and so that takes quite a bit of time to do. If you have an honest but unfortunate debtor, Subchapter 5 is supposed to be a very streamlined, quick process. This particular case has been going for 2 years. The reason for that is we didn't have an honest but unfortunate debtor. We had somebody that was hiding assets, and somebody that wasn't being truthful. And so when you're not truthful with someone, what do you have to do? You have to go investigate. And when you don't have trust, or it looks like you find somebody lying to you, you don't believe anything. Right. And you have to literally chase every single thing down. And that's what we did.
James, let me ask you this. So did she lie under oath regarding her, the businesses or her financials? And what does that look like when you have someone that has lied under oath? What kind of consequences they are looking at, and why she didn't face those consequences?
That is a great question. So when you have somebody that lies under oath, it wasn't just that she lied under oath. She lied on her schedules that were filed with the court under penalty of perjury. For example, there is a box that says, do you have any trust? She checked no. We went to the 341 meeting, which is the very first meeting of creditors, where we first talked to the debtor. The United States trustee asked questions. And I asked, do you have trust? No. I put her under oath at her 2004 examination. For those that don't know, that's basically a deposition, but it's a little broader in bankruptcy. We actually call it a fishing expedition. It's much broader, but she lied under oath about it then. But she did testify truthfully about moving her assets and income to avoid garnishment, and so did her husband. But the point is so what are the consequences of doing that? Well, they can be quite severe. And in fact, anytime I have a debtor that I bring on board, I read them the riot act about, you can do whatever you want, but do not lie. Definitely don't lie to me. But don't think you're going to get away with the lie to the court, because what happens is now you've exposed yourself to what's called bankruptcy fraud. If you want an example of what can happen when that goes horribly wrong and you lie and you hide assets, some of your listeners may know of a person named Teresa Giudice. Anybody ever watched Real Housewives of New Jersey? Yeah. She went to jail. Now, here's the thing. As a private practice attorney, I can uncover the fraud, but I'm not a prosecutor. I am not a U.S. attorney. The U.S. trustee could be watching all of this, and in this case it was, but I don't make the decision of what happens. But what they have the power to do is make what's called a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. Now, here's the interesting question. Is it a great thing that she didn't get prosecuted? Well, I don't like seeing anybody get prosecuted. But the issue is bankruptcy fraud is not usually very high up on the list of things that the DOJ is concerned about. Okay. So they're going after drug dealers. They're going after terrorists. So, it would be great if everybody that does wrong is held to account criminally. But that's not always the case. So it's not a huge win to say, okay, well, she, committed bankruptcy fraud and she got away with it. Not necessarily. Because at the end of the day, we wrapped her up in this plan with the guardrails, the extremely severe guardrails that I haven't seen. I mean, I've been practicing over 20 years. I'm pretty proud of the plan that we got accomplished here. But we held her accountable civilly, but not criminally, because that's not my job.
Yeah, it's not your job. let me follow up with the question that's related to her attorneys, because we know we take an oath and we have a responsibility and a duty not only to our license, but to the court when we have a client that misrepresents, or in this case there is a indication that they may have committed fraud, one, lying on the documents that are submitted. Why didn't her attorneys withdraw, knowing that their client had been dishonest, when they had every right at that point to say, because now you got me looking crazy, and I can't look crazy in the court and look crazy in the public because you want to lie?
No, it's a good question, and I think all of us as attorneys have to understand where that line is. Kind of reminds me of that movie with Matt Damon, and I can't remember the name, but he mentioned about there's a line, and if you cross it once, it may be hard, but you cross it again, it becomes easier and easier till at some point there's no line. And I won't speak for the motivations or intent of any other lawyer other than my own, but I will say this, that if that's kind of a red line for me. If somebody lies to me after I've asked them to be truthful with me, I can deal with the truth. I can deal with that with respect to how I address it with disclosure with other parties. I can spin it in any number of ways, but definitely don't lie to me. And I think that's just something we all have to decide for ourselves. In this case, I would say that, I think ultimately when we found the things that we did, they ultimately disclosed it by the time we got to, I think you had the original plan, didn't disclose it. First amended plan, didn't disclose it. We were finding this stuff all through that period. Finally, they disclosed what we had found and had, deposed them about, by the second amended plan, I think. So
if I can recall, in the first meeting, it almost appeared that she only had a few bags, luggage.
Well, but that's what I'm talking about, right? When I talk about trying to minimize the amount of income you have available and making it look like there's just not available to pay anyone. I'll give you an example. So in the very first plan that came out, where they were not including the money from Yelene Entertainment, I want to talk about that again, so let's come back to that. They had no intention of including the money that they had diverted to Yelene in this plan. The first amended plan, you'll recall, like now I think the amount that they're projecting to pay Cardi is 1.1 million over 5 years. The first plan for all unsecured creditors, 222,000 over 5 years. That amounted to, for all unsecured creditors, a distribution of 5.63%. Because we pushed it over and over again, it was bumped all the way up to 30%. And important point we do need to talk about too, that's 30% in this 5 years. That does not mean that Cardi doesn't get all her money. That was another thing I saw reported over and over.
Right.
Tasha got to win because she only has to pay, the 1.1. I'm like, what part of non-dischargeable don't you understand?
Right.
It's in the plan.
That was a big confusion because we said, well, we see the chart. This is what she has to pay. But they don't understand that this deal was only done for a portion of the debt. And afterwards, what options does Cardi have to collect the rest of that money?
Right. So after the end of this particular plan period, it's a really good question. What she can do is what she was doing right before this bankruptcy was filed, which is start garnishing her YouTube account or whatever, but there's more to it. Okay. The other thing that she can do is, remember, there's another component here that was the defamation judgment against Kebe Studios specifically.
Yep.
Well, I got it in this case where she is now liable for Kebe Studios debt, because there's two components to the adversary action. She's now liable and non-dischargeable not only for her amount of that defamation debt personally, but also the $500,000 to Kebe Studios. So what does that mean if this bankruptcy had fallen apart, right? Well, here's what would have happened and what she could do at the end of 5 years, because we have a tolling of statute of limitations and statute of repose that I had built into this plan. You can sue Yelene for things like fraudulent transfer, mere continuation of the business of Kebe Studios. There's no getting away from this, okay? And what I'm proud of Cardi for doing is that, I saw a lot of ridiculous things online about Cardi, and that, she was picking on Tasha, or that, she was a loser because she's not going to get paid. These things take time. The thing is, Cardi did it right.
Mm-hmm.
She did it right.
Yep.
She didn't get mad. She got down to business and stood on it. Okay.
Yep.
And got people to take care of that for her. So I'm very proud of her. As young as she is, I'm really impressed at her business acumen, because it's all about business at this point. And frankly, at the end of the day, I think what kind of bothers me is just this narrative. I think that, Tasha's a hero. Tasha was a victim of this David and Goliath thing. She's not a hero. She's not a victim. She's being held accountable for her own actions, which, by the way, if you go back, and I know you were covering this early on, Dennis, she could have pulled out and simply withdrawn the defamatory stuff at any time. And she refused to do it. And in fact, doubled down and got particularly nasty with Cardi. So, I think a lot of people need to understand that Cardi's a person too, and when you, as a mother, to have the things said about her, I think she is completely justified. And I think Judge Grossman was very clearly attuned to the fact that Cardi had suffered some horrible defamation. And in fact, that's why Judge Grossman had told us at the first hearing on the motion to dismiss on January 9th, he was not bothered by the non-disparagement clause at all. And I think you've seen the transcript. He went over and over again. If that's what your problem is, I have no problem with that. After what this judgment was about. And keep in mind, this non-disparagement, and by the way, have you ever seen a non-disparagement clause that is only for one side?
No, I didn't.
Have you ever seen it?
No.
Not that Cardi's going to take advantage of that, but the fact that it was there, only for one side, shows how the judge was very good with it based on the type of defamation it was. Exactly. The type of defamation it was, and what she said, the judge
egregious.
And what also the judge said on January 9th meeting was that if you can prove anything about fraud, he was kicking his case. He's dismissing it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because let's set the table here. All right. There's a counter narrative that's kind of going out there that they negotiated this wonderful plan, and this was some high level lawyering on their side. And I'm not disparaging the lawyers on that side at all, but I will tell you that this wasn't a situation where the guardrails that we had in place with respect to, for example, the non-disparagement clause, or the true up that we have that we can talk about in a minute, which deals with payment. Any of the things that we had in there, these were not offered. This was not some kind of concession. These were demanded, and they were gotten by us. Right. Okay. So it's kind of an important point. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could call it a win that you've got a plan, but Cardi's getting paid. So we're certainly not on this side.
The alternative would be that you guys could have went at the judge would dismiss you. Could have went immediately after her assets.
Well, think about it. It would have been even worse in a lot of ways if we'd done that. There's this thought that, it was a great win because we just went ahead and consented to this plan. But we could have gone back to state court and that would have taken forever, and it's horrible. And usually I'll agree with that. Going back to state court is hard. But you have to remember, we'd already, by the time this bankruptcy case started, what started it is because the first money was already being garnished from YouTube. And if you go and look at the docket and see how much she makes, it's much more than the monthly payment she's having to pay right now. So what she was worried about, and she's made very clear, I think, is that she was worried that her business was going to be shuttered if we were able to do that. But why would we not want that? Why wouldn't we want more money? Because if I've got her locked up in a plan, I've got an NDA that I didn't have in state court. I've got a true up provision that I didn't have. I've got a subchapter 5 trustee that is in place for the life of this plan on a consensual plan that normally goes away.
Right.
I've got her on. Okay. So, I don't have any of that if we go back to state court. So why would I want that? Right. So, that's what it's kind of funny to see the counter narrative being spun that this was some kind of amazing, jujitsu legally, full surrender is.
The spin doctors were working.
That's what we got.
I think the spin doctors, and I'm pretty sure the spin doctor master Tasha K, put that out there because she knows that she committed a no-no. And she knows that it could have been extremely worse because of that no-no that she did. And just so happened, the guys came down and saved her. And she's looking at this like, even though she knows she's responsible, but she knows that this right here is a win because she had so much more that was going to happen and to look forward to. So she's like, oh, I'm safe. I'm safe. Oh, this is a win.
Yeah.
So,
listen, I respect the hustle, I guess. But, at the end of the day, right, she had posted literally coming out of the confirmation hearing a post about she was going to have this interview with her attorney. She had a whole media strategy set up, right?
That's
and
Tasha K.
I can tell you, listen, on Cardi's side, she just wants to get paid and move on. She wants literally to hold her account, and get paid what she's owed and move on. You have not seen Cardi pop up anywhere during this bankruptcy case. She's not shown up for the hearings, I'm reminded of an old saying, lions don't really care about the opinions of sheep. Cardi doesn't really care what's going on here. She's just getting paid. All right.
Right.
Let us do the work. And we did.
Lions. That's
and shout out to Lisa Moore, by the way. Shout out to Lisa Moore. Okay?
Oh, the incredible Lisa Moore. The incredible Lisa Moore. Lisa Moore pulled up in Florida the other day too. Now she was in the courtroom as well.
Yeah. Well, listen, she has been, how many years has it been now that she has been doggedly defending, pursuing justice for Cardi? And she got it. And, I told her I really hoped that she would go out and, have some wine, have a nice drink, because this is a really fantastic thing. And I told her I really hope that people see that, because you need an attorney that is going to fight for you. People talk this nonsense about, I want an attorney that's going to fight for me, hit the paint hard, whatever. She does it. Yeah. And because of that, I feel like I'm a better attorney coming out of it, because she's been fantastic to work with. But I do have to say, she's been the one that's been the spearhead to make sure that, we got all the things that we wanted. And like I say, this was never about trying to destroy Tasha's business. She's got that narrative. She was trying to destroy me. Why do you kill the goose that lays the golden egg? If you're working for me, I need you out on the street hustling. Give me the money, right?
Exactly.
That's what she's doing. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if they really understand how monumental this is, especially for what Cardi did. This is a type of case that is going to end up in law books and going to be studied, because you have this megastar that for the first time held a individual who considers themselves a journalist accountable for the defamatory statements that they made in public, and has set the tone for other celebrities or other people from the public to utilize that strategy in order to make sure these people are now not being malicious or intentionally putting out lies in order to sell a story. Now people are all across the world saying allegedly. I ain't never heard allegedly that much before. Cardi and Tasha K.
Yeah,
now
I hear it all the time.
Everything.
Us journalists use it. We use it. Obviously we're doing stories.
Know how massive this is, because it has never been done on both levels. Like this is huge, and they should celebrate and understand that they did something that has never been done, is going to help protect others in the future, and is going to keep individuals honest for the most part.
James, let me ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Now, some people are saying, well, she's going to do it again. She's going to do it again. What happens if another celebrity decides to sue her while she's under this 5-year plan?
Well, listen, nothing. Understand that a plan deals with pre-petition debt. Okay. If she harms somebody now, that's a new action. This bankruptcy has nothing to do with it. Okay. So, you've always got to understand that, or people need to understand that if, for example, you take on new debt after you file for bankruptcy, and you are now what's called a reorganized debtor. There's a difference. There's pre-petition time frame, then you get your plan confirmed, then you become what's called a reorganized debtor. Okay, that is a new legal entity, so to speak. Okay, and if you incur debt after the petition date, you're responsible for that on $100 whatever that is, whether it's a judgment. For example, I'll give you a good example. Say you're a company and you had a towel service that you owed money to pre-petition, and you file and you list them as a pre-petition creditor and you deal with that in your bankruptcy. But let's suppose you get a new towel service provider post-petition. You're going to be paying them 100 cents on the dollar for whatever it is that you owe them. And they can go after you in state court if you owe them money. There's a very clear distinction. So if she gets herself into trouble, she's getting herself in trouble. The bankruptcy court, this bankruptcy court, has nothing to do with that.
Okay. So in other words, Cardi's still protected. No other lawsuit is going to interfere with this 5-year plan.
No, I mean, the only thing that we wonder about, right, and the reason why we have the guardrails is that we don't know whether Tasha is going to keep to her commitments to make payments. Okay. And it's the job of bankruptcy lawyers as opposed to contract lawyers, right? And this is not disparaging contract lawyers, but they tend to look at, what goes right and what my party benefits from on the front end of a deal. And I always tell people you should probably get a bankruptcy lawyer on the front end of that deal, because all we do is think about the parade of horribles when it goes wrong. What are my remedies if there's a default? How am I going to get paid? If this particular company goes belly under, do I have a personal guarantee? That kind of thing.
Okay.
So yeah, it's one of those things where
they don't think about the bankruptcy attorneys until the end of the road, not the beginning.
Yeah, I got to tell you, and it was kind of funny because I think I heard Tasha in her interview said, she's got new business ventures coming up and she wants to have a bankruptcy person look at it, and she wished she had before. That I will endorse absolutely for anybody.
Shout out to Cardi. Shout out to Cardi for now making her become a better businesswoman.
And she said that. She said she's a better business person now because of all this has happened. And that's great, because if she's learned a lesson and not to talk about, and it's not even about talking about people. I mean, that's kind of what social media is. We're all talking about people.
Right. We all are.
You don't lie about people, right? You don't deliberately, cause distress to people intentionally. Yeah. I just think that's a bad way to go about life, right? And if she's learned a lesson not to do that, then that's a great lesson to learn, I think.
As a bankruptcy attorney for many years, how do you rank this particular case in the complexities of this case compared to your other cases? And how high would you rank this as one of those most difficult cases?
Well, this wasn't difficult. Okay. It took a lot of time because we were following the money. There's nothing about this case that I would call difficult. I mean, yeah, I bet you're looking at yourself and you're looking at the documents. It's Thelma, is it right? Did I get that right? Yeah. So Thelma, you see this stuff. You're a lawyer. You look at it and you're like, I don't get it. What's so hard about it? It's not hard. It's what was hard was getting to the point where we could hold her accountable. Right. I mean, listen, I've been involved in cases like, for example, had a case in the Pedders Ponzi scheme where we represented the feeder fund of $1.2 billion holdings there. That's a complicated case. Yeah. Okay. This? No, not complicated at all. There was no like Svengalian, legal work going on here. This was simply just like, work a day, roll up your sleeves, get it done. And unfortunately, when you have somebody that's trying to make that difficult or trying to be deceptive, then it's like, okay, you're going to force me to go there. We'll go there. And we went there. So that's what happened.
So you're barred in many states. I saw in your bio, you are barred in my state, New York, my favorite state, New York State, as well as other jurisdictions. Can you tell everybody about all the other jurisdictions that you are barred in to do bankruptcy?
Well, sure. So, after, you may have seen on my bio, I was, in the United States Navy on nuclear submarines for 10 years. And then when I got out, decided to become a lawyer. And then I started my career in New York. So I'm licensed in New York. I started at a very large firm. At the time, it was called Bingham Dana. Very large firm in New York. And because I was in Connecticut, I took the Connecticut bar. So I took both the Connecticut bar and the New York bar at the same time. And then when you move to Florida, they don't have reciprocity. So you're forced to take the Florida bar.
Mhm.
You know, I think they're afraid of like people like retiring and coming down here. Right. But yeah, so that's why I have 3.
Thelma? Yeah,
I'm
another
ready.
question?
Oh, I was going to say I'm ready to retire right now.
Come on down.
I'm ready to retire right
You
now.
get out your old Barbary books, you'll be fine.
Oh, listen, I don't want to take another bar exam ever in life. If I do, just go ahead and send me to Mars. Just send me up
There
there
you
by
go.
myself.
There you go.
When you went into when you met with Judge Grossman this past week, when he called and asked you, did you have anything to say? I thought it was interesting, you know, what your response was. Can you talk about why did you choose to say that at that moment in front of the judge to set the tone?
Right. So you know, to get any plan confirmed, the judge has to make a finding that the plan was filed in good faith. Now, how am I supposed to say that it was filed in good faith? I had just filed a motion to dismiss the case for bad faith with voluminous records to show it. We don't think this case was filed in good faith at all. Okay. So it was important to put on the record that, you know, this isn't a situation where this plan is being confirmed consensually because we all walked into the courtroom, kumbaya, and we're all friends. That's not the case at all. This was a business decision. Like I told you, Cardi made a business decision because she wanted to make sure that she held Tasha accountable. But we were not about to let that hearing go or Judge Grossman be left with the impression that just because we got a deal at the last minute, and by deal, I mean our demands that we had this entire case were accepted, every single one of them accepted, because the alternative for them was the case would be dismissed. And like I said, we would go after her, garnishing her wages, and we would have gone after Yelena as well and her husband. So, you know, in my view, they made the smart choice, the right choice. You may have seen from the first time when we had the motion to dismiss on file, even their side had mentioned that the reason why negotiations broke down was because of that non-disparagement clause. Tasha refused. She felt like her First Amendment rights were being trodden on, and she would never agree to it. But she just agreed to it, right? Because it got the plan confirmed. So, you know, I think it's just important to put things into context. And let's talk about why I'm here and why I've never spoken before. When the other side comes out with this whole media spin that we watched in real time happening because they wanted to spin this narrative that just wasn't jiving with reality, you know, I think it was incumbent on us to at least say, you know what, people are going to believe what they want to believe. Yeah. That's always going to be the case, right? But at least the truth is going to be out there. We've offered it. I can't say whether people believe me or know anything about me, but I will tell you, this is what happened. You can believe it or not, but at least you can listen to both stories and look at the documents. If you want to do some research, decide for yourself who's telling the truth.
And I thought it was important to bring you up. Initially, I was just going to, you know, had she not did her interview with, shout out to Mr. Chad Horn, you know, because obviously he was working with what he had to work with. But once I saw him do the interview with her, there were some things in that interview that I thought it was probably necessary to bring you up and just set the record straight, you know, because while she never mentioned Cardi and she was very careful, and I shout out to her for that. It seemed like she wanted to, but she knew not to. But
no, and listen, I give full props to her counsel for keeping her, you know, under control as much as he could. But I'm glad that you brought up the interview, because there was one thing that I listened to when I watched it that made me feel a little bit sad, actually, because she's obviously she took this take that she said something like she wished she could stay in bankruptcy forever. It was so wonderful and she felt so safe and secure. And I got to tell you, I have never in my entire career had a conversation with somebody that wanted to be in bankruptcy.
Right.
yeah,
it's sort of like,
for me,
you know, to me, it's sort of like, you know, bankruptcy, you know, it's a useful tool, but I kind of think of it's like it's jail. You know, if you got to be there as short as you can and get out, right?
Right.
You know, because you know, bankruptcy is not a mechanism. It is not designed to be a mechanism to make you feel good and to stiff your creditors. That's not what it is about at all. And I was sad because I thought this message was going out. File bankruptcy. It's wonderful. It's just this wonderful thing.
Right. Right.
You know, that's just not what it is. And I was sad to see that was a message coming out. And she also made a comment about, well, you know, because asked if there was a default and you know, I actually wrote it down here because I was looking at it. She said, well, if something comes down, we'll deal with it and we'll keep on going and we'll just make adjustments to life. Really? That's not quite how that works.
I didn't see that in the plan.
Well, yeah. So, you know, that seemed to me kind of a big misunderstanding. Go to page 21 of the plan. You'll see what the remedies are. She's got 30 days to cure any defaults. And if she doesn't, then and this is another component that we have that's very unusual. Normally, the subchapter 5 trustee has the right to seek a dismissal of the case. We can as well. Very unusual. So, you know, that and a lot of other things. So, you know, our view was, look, we thought our numbers were kind of ridiculous. I mean, our forensic accountants couldn't make head nor tails of them because they were literally just moving stuff around. But, you know, we did the best we could with what we saw and what we could live with and put it into the plan. But at the end of the day, I mean, one of the things that was kind of hilarious and, you know, like funny, haha, but not haha, right, is they had told us that when they blew up the second plan that we had thought we were all agreeing to before there was a breakdown on the non-disparagement agreement, I get told, well, you know, that plan was aspirational anyway.
Yeah, I talked about that on my show.
As a bankruptcy attorney, let me tell you something. You do not go in front of a judge with an aspirational plan.
Right. Who does that?
It's a waste of their time. Like, so you are telling me you have been wasting not only my time, but opposing counsel time, which means that this person has to come out of their pockets with more money because you are living on an aspiration.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it was received about as well as you can imagine.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
What was some of the, I guess it's probably not shocking for you, but what did you think, when did you realize that you were getting fed a bunch of BS?
Oh, we knew that before. No. We knew that before we started this case, okay? And let's be very clear. Now, remember, I'm coming into the case as a bankruptcy attorney. I don't know, other than the vague headlines that I see, you know, I don't know really what's going on here. I had to look up the fact, you know, Thelma, by the way, one of the things that you mentioned was how, you know, this will be like looked at for years. What happened here, that defamation judgment, when I looked it up, it stunned me. It was the first time a celebrity got a defamation judgment since Carol Burnett in the 70s.
Yes. That's why I say Cardi is legendary. She's a legend.
I didn't
Cardi
know that.
And her attorney that got it, right? Lisa?
Right. Wow, my goodness.
But
I didn't know that.
You say, when did I know?
Yeah.
Day one, I was told that Tasha had and her husband had lied through the defamation case. Okay. Caught them in multiple lies. So I knew what I was dealing with there. And I will tell you, as somebody that didn't really know the players or what exactly they wanted, I'm going to give the best advice I can. And when I saw that they were filing a bankruptcy case for a non-dischargeable debt, what are you doing? And by the way, Judge Grossman kept repeatedly asking that. What are you doing here? You know, what do you think you're going to accomplish? Because my view was, let's move to dismiss day one. Why are we even messing with it? And because Lisa was smart enough to realize if we use this process, we are able to have the ability to have oversight and then look into the finances you would have never gotten in state court. Am I right, Thelma? We would have never gotten it.
Yes.
So we're like, okay, we'll play your silly game. We'll go into bankruptcy.
I love
so
that.
That's why we did it. It's not because we didn't know what we were dealing with. We didn't know we were dealing. Yeah, we knew we were dealing with somebody that was dishonest. It was a matter of how do we deal with that? And, you know, to me, it's the kind of the difference between a reactionary person playing checkers. We prefer to play chess. Right. You got to play the long game. Mm-hmm. And Cardi, to her credit, played the long game here. She wasn't reactionary. And you know what? it wasn't fulfilling for people that are out there in, social media land, because they want to see action. They want to say, you mean you got this judgment this long ago and you still haven't been paid? Ha ha. You got taken. No, she didn't. Because once this 5-year plan is done, let's see, I ran the numbers here. So we've got when she gets done with this 5-year plan, she's still going to owe $2.7 million on that judgment. That's not going away. So if she wants to file another 5-year plan, you want to be in that soft, secure place bankruptcy for 10 years, knock yourself out. But most people aren't going to do that.
Most people want to get that monkey off their back as soon as possible. And then she's scaling up her business.
People are in your business. It's not easy.
Well, listen, this is one of the other things that's very unusual in this plan, that you literally cannot force this. And it's a true up, right? And to explain what that is, it means that what they've done in their plan is make projections of what they think they're going to be able to pay over the 5 years, but it's more than just what they think, it's what they're committing to. That's why you can't have an aspirational plan. You are committing to pay this over 5 years, but we don't trust those numbers, right? We think she's going to make a lot more money. And in fact, in her interview, she talked about how wonderful her businesses are doing. She'd make all this much more money. So what did we put in plan? You make more money, then we're going to adjust the percentage we get paid if it goes up, right? We're going to get paid more. But guess what happens if it goes lower? She's still going to pay that projected amount. So we have a floor and no ceiling.
She don't ever see that in plan. Attorney's worst nightmare of a client, because she did exactly what attorneys tell their clients don't do. And Cardi did exactly what attorneys tell their clients to do. Be quiet. Let us do our job, and we're going to handle this. You just sit over there and go and continue to be the artist that you are. We got this. This is our lane. Tasha kept trying to get into everybody's lane, and that was her problem.
And people were, obviously from looking at the commentary and the stories being done on this case, they were looking for a quick fix. They wanted Cardi to get immediate gratification. And in bankruptcy, that's not realistic. You don't get immediate gratification when especially this type of debtor. You don't get that type of gratification.
Yeah, listen, like I say, I watched a lot of the social media out there, some better than others. Really surprised at some of the commentators that were attorneys, apparently. That I was shocked, and I was like, if you're an attorney, why didn't you even call me before you went with this? It's so wrong, and just so wrong. But you just have to roll your eyes and just say, you know what? All of the naysayers, all of the people that think that Cardi got taken, I knew, Lisa knew what was coming. We just knew we had to bide our time, work the system, work the problem, trust in our system, trust in our judges, trust in our U.S. trustee and our sub 5 trustee. We all did our jobs, but nobody promises that job is going to be quick or fast when you're being deceitful. Because if they had been honest, this would have been a much quicker process.
Yeah. And she probably would not have had a lot of stuff happen since then. Like her revealing the fact that she's making all this money. That may not even been in the consideration, because she's still out here leaving breadcrumbs to be picked up and to be used against her. And she still think that was the right thing to do. But I can promise you this, that woman in her prayer closet, because I'm pretty sure she got one now, in her prayer closet, she was asking God. She was asking God, hey, can you get me out of this? I didn't mess this up so bad. And I just can't in the public tell them that. But you know that I'm over here shitting bricks because I know I didn't mess this up. Get me out of this.
Yeah. And I think it was probably really hard for Cardi too at some point. I'm sure she had friends that are watching social media going, what's going on? Are you ever going to see anything? And she knew what's going on.
Yeah.
And it must have been hard knowing all these people are talking about her, not having a clue about the payday coming. And listen, the payday is set up. We'll see whether Tasha complies with her obligations, but we're ready for her if she doesn't. Okay. We are ready for her and her husband and her husband's company if she doesn't. And she knows that. And so hopefully she will comply. And if she's doing as well as she says she is, I think that's wonderful. Fantastic. If you're earning money legitimately without running people down, awesome. Although I have seen some headlines that look like she might be in trouble again. But I'm just saying, hypothetically, if she were to run her business legitimately that way, great. Then we get paid. We're happy with that.
Well, I hope she doesn't run anyone else down. You know, at least I want to see Cardi get her money. I want to see her, you know, the family, you know, I want to see her grow. You know, I think that she, you know, while this was self-inflicted, you know, people got to move on. You know, everything's happening in this world. She, you know, she should move on and just, you know, focus on, you know, being a great content creator. She does have talent. You know, that I can't take that away from her. It's how she got there, and you know, she has an opportunity to make this thing great and probably pay Cardi in short time. Maybe I think she could pay Cardi if she does it the right way within 5 years, all her money.
Yeah. Hey, listen. There's no provision in the plan that says she can't pay early. There are no prepayment penalties.
Say that again, because she might not understood that. Say that again. She could.
There's no provision in the plan that says she can't pay early.
You should pay her early and get out of what you are in, because I wholeheartedly feel like unfortunately, something like this needed to happen, because the way the internet and social media was headed, it was only going to get worse and worse and worse. And Tasha, unfortunately, decided that she was going to be the landmark that became the landmark of what not to do when you are sitting here and you are reporting on individuals in a false way. But sometimes this have to happen in order for things to change, and also for new laws to be actually utilized, or old laws to come into play to say, hey, we got to revisit this, because I know we ain't seen this in a while, but now that it's back, we got to readdress this because it's getting out of hand, and we got to stop the bleeding before people continue to bleed out, because people are committing suicide, unaliving themselves at a high rate.
So, Jen, what would you like, talking about laws change, what would you like to see change in bankruptcy law, and why? Because you just finished a conference, and I don't know if that was part of the discussion, but what would you like to see in bankruptcy law changed?
Oh, well, you know, listen, I promise you, I would probably bore you to tears if I told you the things that I want. I mean, you talk about complicated cases, right? We have an issue right now where I represent a large group of personal injury claimants that have been hurt from medical malpractice, where, you know, you've got running the gamut from their child died. I have one client that his wife and child died at a hospital because of negligence. Horrible things that happen, but yet the hospital where this stuff happened goes into bankruptcy, and you find out that a lot of these hospitals have what they call captive insurance, right? Where they own their own insurance company. And so when they go into bankruptcy, there's no money for anybody. And I'm dealing with that right now, where people are literally being harmed. And I would love to see bankruptcy law change to hold these people and these owners of healthcare agencies that harm the people that they harmed, by not giving them the ability to even get insurance money, right? It's just a horrible problem. So I told you it might bore you, because, you know, my lane is not normally celebrity stuff, right? I deal with real bankruptcy cases that affect a lot of people that are truly harmed, right? Not to say that Cardi wasn't truly harmed. She certainly was. What I'm saying is, though, there are people out there that are physically have either lost loved ones, right? Or are horribly disfigured or made into quadriplegics because somebody left something, you know, inside them during it's just crazy, some of the stuff I've heard. But, you know, bankruptcy, you know, the best thing about bankruptcy is it's continually evolving, because, you know, the wonderful thing about bankruptcy, as opposed to a lot of other courts, is we're a court of equity. The judge is trying to do right by people. Okay. Now there is a bankruptcy code which kind of provides the outliers of what you can and cannot do. But within that, the bankruptcy court has a lot of discretion to make sure that an equitable result occurs between creditors and debtors, because you cannot have a bankruptcy system that is always on the side of debtors. Right. You cannot have a bankruptcy system that is always on the side of creditors. Mm-hmm. It is a very fine balance that has to be maintained to make sure that, you know, no one's ox is getting gored more than someone else's. And that's why we have things called like the absolute priority rule, where, you know, there are levels of creditors that get paid at certain segments, right? At certain stages, because we want to make sure that equity is done. And it's one of the reasons why I love being a bankruptcy lawyer, right? You know, when I started my practice, I could have been a transactional lawyer. I could have been a litigator. But you know what? Bankruptcy lawyers, we do all of it. Mm-hmm. We put deals together. We go and fight in court. We do it all. So, you know, I'm sort of like a great position, I think. And I will tell you, in the Southern District of Florida, we have an incredibly deep, sophisticated bench with bankruptcy attorneys and judges, probably some of the best judges in the entire country. And I know that because I practiced around the country. But you know, things that I would change, you know, with bankruptcy, not so much the mechanisms of bankruptcy, but I would really like to see people that are considering bankruptcy to understand that it's not this thing that you do to just get out of jail free card. Okay. That's not what bankruptcy is. And I'll tell you another thing that people don't realize. When you file for bankruptcy, you get a trustee appointed to your case. And that trustee will typically look at you very hard to find out, how did you get here? And did you do something that I need to claw back money into this estate to pay your creditors because you did something wrong? Okay. You know, so it's not something to be done lightly at all. At all.
Do you work more with creditors or debtors?
I would say probably over the course of my career, I've done all kinds. I've worked for very high net worth creditors. I've worked for debtors. I've gotten plans confirmed in the harshest of situations. There's a lot of negotiation that has to go forward, a lot of mouths that need to get fed, like in corporate bankruptcy, because that's typically what I do. I do corporate bankruptcies and reorganizations. I very rarely deal with individuals, frankly. You know, I did have like my first entree into dealing with you know, I guess a celebrity or something. I represented a record company against a rapper you might have heard of, Suki Hana. I don't know if you've heard of her.
Oh, Suki anyway, I know who she is.
Yeah. The first time I played one of her videos in my office, I literally ran to my door to shut it because I didn't realize what I was in for. Anyway, so I don't usually do those kind of cases. I'm usually working with my colleagues to do very sophisticated, either financial fraud situations, you know, structured settlements, you know, trying to make sure, for example, I don't know if you've heard of the company It's Sugar. It's a candy company that's all over the country. You'll see them in Las Vegas and New York. And that was one of the cases I worked on. We reorganized where the creditors got 100% recovery on their debt. Okay.
Wow.
Fantastic case. Was super happy and super proud of it. And they are doing amazing. So see, bankruptcy, when you use it properly, can be a great restart. That's what we call it. Bankruptcy is an opportunity for a fresh start. And when you have that and you're able to reorganize your debt in a way that makes sense for you and your creditors, it's the most wonderful thing. It is our judicial system working at peak empathy and efficiency. And I love it. And that's why I would never do any other kind of law.
Our president used it a few times. And, you know, I mean, if he found it, you know, necessary to use it, it might not be a bad thing. I don't know.
Or Giuliani, like, how did I'm still curious as how he finally came up with that money to pay.
Well, but, you know, listen, that Giuliani case, that's another good example. When you've got a situation where it looked like Giuliani was doing everything he could to hide his assets or get them out of the reach of his creditors, luckily, those two wonderful women were able to get lawyers that are not going to take no for an answer. They have been dogged, making sure they got justice for their client, just like Lisa and I have done for Cardi. You cannot just take no for an answer, and you can't be afraid of a fight. I will tell you this, I'm not afraid to go into a courtroom. I'm not afraid of trial. So you need, if somebody, especially for creditors that are dealing with a dishonest debtor, you do want to get a lawyer that does no problem, following the money and doing whatever you have to do to protect your client. And that doesn't always mean you get 100% recovery for your client, but what it does mean, you get as much as you're ever going to get.
Yeah.
And that's all anyone should be able to expect, right?
Right. It's as much as you're ever going to get. I understand that very well. Thelma, have any questions?
No.
Any more questions, Thelma?
No
Jim,
more questions. But
Jim, final words. Final words, Jim.
Listen, I think that Thelma raised a good point that, this is the sort of case where I do hope people pay attention, because most people are not familiar with what bankruptcy is, other than, they might see an attorney advertisement on their TV on Sunday morning, when they're flipping channels, right? You're not exposed to it. And, there's a funny saying I have, like, everybody hates an attorney until you need one. And then you're your best friend, right? But, I do hope that
cops too, by the way.
Yeah, I do hope that people pay attention to what bankruptcy is, what it can do, and what it's not meant to do.
Mhm.
Tasha should be a cautionary tale. I do think she has a wonderful opportunity, just like Judge Grossman told her, at this confirmation hearing. You have an opportunity to, go on with your life and grow your business. And I really hope you take advantage of it, is what the judge said, paraphrasing. But I really do hope you take advantage of this opportunity, because he knew and acknowledged at the hearing that many times during this case, it looked like it was going to come off the rails. And the reason why is not because we were being difficult. It's because we were continually being lied to. And when that happens, we have to continually get discovery, find out what the truth is. And then once we've got the truth, we act on it. But that's what made this case a little bit difficult. But if people learn anything from this at all, they should understand the cautionary tale. Number one, don't lie on people, don't lie on people. And the second thing is that if you do own up to it, apologize. Right. And the third thing is that understand that bankruptcy, if you are somebody that's struggling with, like, say, medical debt, or, you lost your job, or your husband lost their job, or your wife lost their job, and, you really need help, bankruptcy is there for you. Talk to a bankruptcy attorney. Most consultations are free. Okay. And this subchapter 5, that is not what most people are going to be looking at. Okay. Most people that are dealing with consumer debt will do either a chapter 13 plan, where they pay their debt back over time, a little bit like what we're seeing here, but it's for consumer debt. Or they'll file for a chapter 7 liquidation. Mm-hmm. And, I remember I had this couple that owned this group of movie theaters that thought their life was over. And the husband was thinking about unaliving himself. And the wife was calling me like, what do we do? I'm so worried. It was horrible. And I told them, calm down. That, you don't have the money to pay people back. You are disclosing everything. The trustee will see that. Can I tell you, we got through that bankruptcy, and I'll never forget when the wife called me crying, telling me, thank God we did this. I thought our lives were over, and they got on with their lives. And we were laughing about the fact they were already getting credit card offers within like a month of coming out of bankruptcy. It was hilarious. But it's not the end. Bankruptcy is not the end. And don't be ashamed if you got to file it, right? Mm-hmm. But don't come into bankruptcy court thinking you're going to lie, because I'm going to tell you something. And this is what people need to understand. This may be your first bankruptcy. This may be the 12th I've seen that day. Okay. And the U.S. trustee. We've seen it all day, every day. Every kind of fraud, every kind of attempt to deceive. We are seeing it. We are there waiting for you. Don't do it. Okay. Mm-hmm. But if you're honest and you really just need to get your stuff taken care of, we are here for you, and we're here to help.
Yeah.
How can people find you? I know you can Google you, because after this interview, I'm sure.
Yeah, everybody gonna be trying to figure out. Let me contact Attorney Moon, because
Well, listen, I'm my office is in Miami. I'm with a fantastic firm called Meland Budwick. That's MELAND Budwick. Any one of the attorneys at my shop, I have to tell you, I'm super proud of where I work because we're all very competent, very friendly with each other. I love where I work, but we do all kinds of stuff, but like I tell you, we do very high net worth individuals, but I do pro bono cases. I'm about to file a pro bono case on Monday for an individual that just really needs help. So we do all kinds of things, and we run the gamut from debtor work, creditor work. We represent trustees. We represent creditors committees. We do it all. So, there's a lot of competent attorneys out there, but I have to say, I like to think my firm is probably right up there with the most competent.
Yeah.
You're a high ticket attorney. Let's not make light of that now.
Hey, listen, match my fees against a New York attorney, and then come ask me whether I'm high.
Well, you were a New York attorney.
I was.
Right. Right. Still on the East Coast.
Well,
absolutely.
Jim, I thank you for coming up and clearing all the misconceptions, and also giving people a better understanding of this process. And everything's not always peaches and cream like it was kind of, projected to be, with the other interview I saw. But you gave people the hard facts, and I think that's important. I think and one thing people should take away from this is that if you don't know the answer to something, reach out to the person who could give you the answer versus making something up. And I think that's important.
It doesn't mean that in this sort of, like in this situation, it doesn't mean I'm going to talk to you. You should
right. At least try. At least try. They could say at the end of the interview, well, we reached out to Mr. Moon, but he couldn't make any comment. Something.
Well, especially attorneys, right? I would have at least expected it from so-called attorneys. It happened.
It's not the same anymore. It's not. But it's a testament to your character and your integrity also, especially how you handle your cases and how you've been able to be so successful, because it speaks to the foundation of the type of person you are.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right. So with that,
shout out to Lisa, because girl,
I want to see if anyone had any questions.
Without her, you gotta give her props.
Lisa did her thing. Shout out to Lisa.
I was just scrolling to see if anyone had any particular questions for you, but I don't see anything that stands out with that. He gave us a lot. So if you didn't watch come in the beginning, hit the replay button and make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend, because this guy has a lot of work to do. He gave us at least an hour and almost an hour of his time. That's a beautiful thing.
Because we did crazy.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and I again appreciate all who have joined in to listen to the interview. This interview will be available on all streaming platforms. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are gone. Peace.